Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight, the case is opened about HISD and our school board trustee, board trustee candidate for District 4. We have in the studio tonight Miss Davetta Daniels, who is running for school board. It's important that we have good people on our school board that will represent our kids and someone that we can talk to and someone that we can relate to and feel comfortable with. A lot of us don't even care about school board trustees unless our children are in trouble or there's some crises or there's some school that's about to close that we don't want to close, and then we wonder, well, what can we do about it? What can we do about it? I tell you, what we can do about it is know who our representatives are, know what their platforms are, and know what they can do for us as a community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my honored guest, Ms. Davetta, Dr. Davetta Daniels.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you for having me, and I do consider it a pleasure and honor. I've watched you from afar, and I'm amazed at the energy and the commitment that you give to our community. And so, again, I want you to know that you're right on point when you're talking about closing schools, and especially in the area that I live in, which is centrally located to the city. There is so much change that's going so fast, and we as African American parents, taxpayers, and certainly our children, want to ensure that our schools stay open. For years, I have always been a staunch supporter of neighborhood schools, and so it bothers me when I see schools closing in our area. I understand that the demographics are not the same, that we don't have the children 20 years ago in the neighborhood that we used to have, but with the gentrification and the new homeowners moving in, some of them have children, and it doesn't, or we're not offering many choices. As you know, the price tags on some of those homes are very expensive, and parents are not going to settle for inequality as far as their children's education. I have a radio show, Counselor, and I say all the time on the show and when I'm talking to people like you, and just in common conversation, that the most important issue that we face in the 21st century is education. We have an education crisis going on.
Wow.
There's no secret. And it's not just locally, it's going across the country. So yes, I'm running because I do want to, first of all, try to save neighborhood schools. I like to see children walk into school in the morning. It reminds me of my childhood. As a childhood, we had so much fun, and we built social skills and character and learned right and wrong and how to protect ourselves and how to build consensus and mediate when we didn't even know that.
Right.
And parents didn't get in it, and teachers didn't get in it, because most of it started when we started walking to school, and by the time we arrived to school, it was over, and then we went and had school. And the teachers, the parents, nobody interfered. We would solve our own problems. So there's a lot to be learned other than education when it comes to neighborhood schools, building camaraderie, parents learning each other's children, learning each other, making friends that sometimes can last for a lifetime. So I am running because I want to do as much as I can and use the influence or the confluence of this position as board trustee to fight, to continue to fight to keep schools open, but also give people a reason to want to come to our schools. And right now, our largest school in the area, which is Jack Yates High School, is one that the community is upheaval about. We're very upset because in the bond, it was a big bond that was passed 2 years ago. And this bond was a $1.9 billion bond package in the history of this city. And I think I was reading maybe in this country that there have not been a bond with that kind of price tag on it. So what has happened is that a lot of people paid or invested in these bonds, okay? A lot of people expected to benefit, like our area. We want
So tell me about that. So there was a huge bond referendum and issuance 2 years ago. You said it was $1.9 billion. Oh, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And that's bonds issued and that those funds are to be earmarked to save our schools.
To build schools,
To
to
build
renovate
schools,
schools,
to
and
renovate
Yates
schools.
was one of those schools that was up for rebuilding. Bel Air is being rebuilt.
So what about Jack Yates?
Jack
Yates would be in your district if you won this position.
Yes, yes, it would. And so there are community activists that are very involved, including myself. We've been to the board prior to this, and when we found out that the $78 million that was allocated to build a new Jack Yates, find out now that it's, I think I heard 51,000 that it is shrunk to.
How does that happen?
Well, that's what the $1 million question is, of promises unkept. Julia Stepici is on the board, and she serves as the audit chair. And so when some of the community leaders and parents and students, because they're very actively involved now, which is good, started asking questions. Now we're earmarked to get a school. When is it gonna start happening? The blueprint was much smaller than the school that most of us had in mind. So, started asking questions. When is the demolition? What are y'all gonna do? When are you gonna start? And then this is when we started finding out that the money that we were promised has shrunk. Okay, so people made enough noise. They started calling on the bond overview committee. I was one that called myself. Public records.
Open records.
Open records.
Because under the Open Records Act, you can ask for anything that the public pays for.
Well, they told me they would have 10 days to respond.
Right.
This is probably the 20th day now, and no response. So at the same time, other people are getting more and more anxious about it, or have angst about it, and rightfully so. So this is when Ms. Stepici, who is on the board now, and she happens to chair the audit committee with the district, requested a external and internal audit. And then after about a week ago, the superintendent comes, and I guess the explanation didn't make any sense, because what he was saying is that because of prices increasing and whatever it was in their configuration back 2 years ago, because
inflation.
Inflation costs, right.
But inflation is always supposed to be built into blueprints and costs. I mean, obviously, because every school that's built is never built immediately upon the drawing.
So that should have been factored in.
It's supposed to be factored in.
Right. Well,
those computer programs factor it in.
Well, counselor.
So they're just talking to us stupid, basically. That's just talking stupid.
Yeah, well, think we're stupid.
Think we're stupid.
Well, I tell you what, I think the board, all of them, it was almost, I don't know, it wasn't unanimous, because you do have those board people that will inevitably vote with the superintendent every time. But there was, they were outvoted. They were outvoted.
Who was outvoted?
They were the superintendent.
So how many people are on the HISD board?
It's a 9-district member board.
So it's 9 members.
Right, so it takes
9
5.
members and the superintendent.
Right.
He's number 10.
Exactly.
And the superintendent gets to vote?
Yes, he votes, but it's always, right now, they're counting the people who are coming off the board, who are gonna be replaced by those board members that continually have record of voting with the superintendent. So I am in that position when I win, that I will not be voting for some of this nonsense that's been going on.
But the superintendent is resigning, isn't that correct?
Well, it's under duress. I don't think he planned to resign.
What's his name and date of resignation?
Well, now he's saying that he's going to stay to March 1st. But there are those that are saying, no, we need you to make it effective immediately. Now, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, they need time to find someone to take his place, and so that the board will run well, so that giving them till March is not unreasonable.
Well, it's not unreasonable, but I kind of equate it to if I had a child and my child's teacher or principal or maybe my lawyer, and something happens and they have to leave for 6 months, then what happens to my child's learning? Right. Or what happens to the operation of the school?
Right.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there are no indispensable people.
Right.
Business must flow, and there should always be a number 2 person or cross-training that's going on in any situation where business can flow.
Right.
No one person should carry that much wait, where everything stops in their absence. So that's.
Well, tell me again about Jack Yates. So when we get to the $78 million renovation of Jack Yates, the numbers, what you've been told, have shrunk.
Yeah.
The budget has shrunk, even though the blueprint has been designed. And I've never heard of any program that designs something that doesn't factor in inflation for every year, because you have a projection. If this starts in January 2017, it's projected to be over, December 2018, and all of those cost inflation factors for materials and labor is always factored in. So that doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
But what is the current state of Jack Yates as far as you know? When you were talking about, but it wasn't quite clear. You were talking about the 5 members, 5 vote, and he got outvoted. So I don't quite understand what that
Well, the majority voted for him to stay until March.
Gotcha.
There were those that wanted to place an interim superintendent
Gotcha.
there, and there were some names that some of these community leaders had given to the committee.
Gotcha.
And I think they were outvoted or downvoted. But he's going to stay, as I know, until March 1st.
And does the board vote on Jack Yates, or is that like a private discussion, or does just the superintendent make that decision? Who makes the decision for the $78 million renovation of Jack Yates to change?
Well, first of all, it's not 78 anymore. That's what was allocated.
Right. When that was allocated, who made the decision that wouldn't be the amount spent? Who makes that decision?
Okay, I think after they did the audit came back that they didn't have that money available anymore. Now, what we're asking is where's the money?
Well, that means that they overspent for other projects.
Well, it's not just Yates. There were other schools. Matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. The way it ended up in the Houston Chronicle is that it was a Facebook parent, a parent that was on Facebook. This parent was a parent at Jeff Davis Senior High School. Jeff Davis High School is where Ms. Julia Stepici, who is the audit chair of the board, and when she heard about this woman complaining about rats falling from the ceiling and loose wires, electrical wires hanging from the ceiling, she was so upset. Where's the new school that we're supposed to have? When is it going to be built? Well, Julia Stepici got involved on Facebook. And so, the power of social media.
Now, is that her, Julia Stepici, is that her home high school?
That is her home high school, from what I understand. And so she got immediately involved and kind of took matters in her own hand as far as asking those tough questions. And since she's at the board, and this is so alarming, and the teacher was so upset, she is the one called officially for this external and internal audit. And this is when they found out that, the money that was originally allotted for these schools, Jeff Davis, I don't remember, but it was in the tune of $48 million that had been allocated for that. It looks like it's not going to happen either.
Wow.
And so it's not just Jack Yates. We're concerned about Jack Yates because that's in our backyard. But now Jeff Davis, and there are some other schools. Worthing High School, they've been building Worthing forever.
Wow.
I think they just got serious about it the middle of the summer.
Wow.
So that meant they're nowhere near finished that building. And so they just don't, they're just not running business the way taxpayers expect them to run the business.
That's a very good point. Now, you're running for an open seat.
Yes, sir.
Vacated by Paula Harris, is that correct?
Yes.
So a lot of people knew of Paula Harris. Apparently, she had a lot of money, and her name was all over the District 4. I remember seeing her name all the time. Tell us what you would do as one of the 9-member board members to bring awareness in our community.
I would do what I've been doing all my life, building coalitions. As smart as I think I am sometimes, I realize I'm not as smart because everybody has something to offer. And so when you put a lot of like minds together that have similar goals, and I'm saying I'm not that smart on my own.
Right.
That's what I guess I'm trying to say. And so when you have people that come together for common interests and common good for a community, then you get a better result. I don't know, I'm not defending what Ms. Harris did, and I'm not criticizing in all of what she did, because I think some of the things were good and some of them were not. But if I had to make concern about the leadership, it seemed like she didn't really come to the community as much as she should have.
And how will you come to the community
will-
when you get that job?
Well, what I will do is do what I've done. I have groups right now that I've been meeting with for 2 years. We meet at This Is It, which is a very popular restaurant on Blodgett, right in the heart of the community. And we talk every Friday morning with breakfast, and the meeting gets larger. And it gets larger because people are finding out that we're there. And people bring whatever their issues are, their concerns, or you know, to the meeting to see what we can do as a group, to see, and it's called Now Is the Time. And this meeting was, this group was formed by Reverend Robert Gilmore. I don't know if you know Reverend Gilmore or not, but he is a strong force in the community. He's tall, he talks loud, and when he speaks, people listen. But since then, there are so many people you know probably that are in the group, and we just talk about schools. We talk about some of the issues in schools. We talk about churches. We talk about the gentrification going on. We talk about all the developers that are coming in. And what I think the common nuance is for us is that enough people who live in the area are not involved in the conversation. And that's the same thing that's happening in HISD. And that's one thing that I would want to make sure under my leadership, that people are brought into the planning, you know, on the ground up, from the ground down to the building up. And so it's just like a committee. You know, you work in a school, you work on a club, in a sorority or whatever, and you get a committee. And the committee does the work. Usually it's a chair of a committee, which I'll be like the chair. Some people call it a kitchen cabinet. But it's a group of people, like I said, who want to see change. And so change, of course, sometimes should be done incrementally, because I find in my experience that people really don't mind change. They don't like being changed. They don't like somebody else trying to change them. And it happens in job situations, companies, bureaucracies like the city government, state government. People don't like being changed. And so when you feel like you included to help to make the change, then those hands, those committed people make the change happen because they feel ownership, you know, because people listen to them. And so if you are kind of pushed out of the process, you don't do anything to make it work, because number one, you don't know the process. And so it's just good common sense that when you're doing anything, try to build something to get people to like-minded, or maybe not, to hear other opposing ideas. But certainly after all is said and done, come together on a common goal, and then let's go for it as rigorously as we can.
Let's talk about 2 schools that I've noticed have been combined or rebuilt in the District 4,
Okay.
3rd Ward area. And that is, there's Lockhart Elementary School that's on Sophomore. And then it looks like it closed down, and then it looked like Turner was rebuilt elementary. So speak to me about what happened with those schools.
Well, you know, that was a very divisive.
Were they combined?
Well, what happened is Lockhart had been right there on Southmore for years, over 30 years or more, and I don't know exactly how many, but it's historic, dates back, you know, historical. And there was, I think Mr. Lockhart was a pastor. And then Mr. Turner, I believe, was a pastor too. And that school sat just as long over there on Rosedale. And so half of the community went to those schools. Half of them went to Turner, half of them went to Lockhart. So they were figments of the community. Whenever a group of people have enough respect for you to name a school or a building or any edifice in your name, that becomes historical. So to tear it down becomes a problem, because a lot of people are still living, and they remember these people when they were living. And so it was divisive. It was done, to me, selfishly. And so the community was in an uproar.
So what is going on with the Lockhart building that's still standing there?
Well,
are they going to tear it down, or did they tear it down?
Well, you know what? It seems like a lot of people are still asking that same question.
Right.
What are they going to do with it? Because at one time, and I'm going to tell you what they did, too. There was
Because
just
it seemed like they could put the Jack Yates kids over there while they just hurry up and build Jack Yates. You know what I mean?
Well, what they
it's
did.
harder to build a building while people are occupying it. So you need to have it unoccupied for about 2 years and just have them somewhere else at another school so that they can tear it down and rebuild it if they're going to do that.
Well, that land that Lockhart was on right there on Southmore has been vacant now for what,
Years.
2 years now, 2 years.
Is it just 2?
Well,
That's
2,
been a long
2, 3.
time.
Too long. Okay, but what they did to Turner, they just erased the name Turner off the school.
Oh, so it's just Lockhart.
It's just Lockhart,
In
but the
Turner's
community
spot.
still calls it Turner Lockhart. And so they could have put both names to
Oh, I thought
satisfy
they
both
did put
groups.
both names. And let me
No.
tell you what's interesting
No,
about
they
Turner.
didn't.
I bought a house in 3rd Ward around the corner from there, from Turner, about 15 years ago. And I met a guy, it was just a coincidence. I had him doing a deck on the back. And he was an older white gentleman. And he said in the 50s he went to Turner. He walked there. He lived in the exact house I was in.
Wow.
On Calumet, because my side street, Sampson, where the liquor store is, dead ends back there into Turner. It's on
Okay.
the back side, on
Right.
Sophomore side.
Okay.
There's a back side, so you can see it from Southmore if you're at Ralston Liquor Store.
Okay.
You can see Turner. It's
Okay.
the backyard.
That's
but he
right.
said back then you could just walk straight through.
Wow.
So through the years, I guess they closed it down where you have to enter on Rosedale. You have to walk around.
Okay.
And so he told me, and he was an older gentleman, so I think he'd gone there in the 50s.
Probably
That school's been there a long, long time.
It's been there a long time, and Turner's been there a long time.
Turner's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, Turner.
Turner's been there a long
But
time.
you know, to satisfy both communities,
They should have put both names.
they should have put both names. And that would
I
have been
thought
so
they
easy.
did.
No, well, the community has not stopped calling it Turner. So the
Right.
community.
But I thought it was like Turner Lockhart or something now, but I
No,
guess
it's
not.
just Lockhart. It's just Lockhart.
Well, a lot certainly needs to be done, and I think that what you're saying, if you win, it would be the greatest thing to do, and it's to build coalitions. And
Build
the good thing is, with Facebook, we can have more communication as a neighborhood and a community. When I moved to that area in 2015, I actually sent my daughter to McGregor Elementary.
Okay.
So Morgan went to McGregor from the 2nd grade through the 5th grade or wherever it goes. Yeah, she was all HISD student. I mean, she went to private school like from baby all the way to 1st grade. And then her dad teased me one time, and he was like, and you know her father, Dr. Dorsey.
Yeah, I know Dr.
He
Dorsey.
teased
He's
me
my
one time
friend.
when she was in the 1st grade. We were divorced already, but he said, Vivian, now I treat a lot of underprivileged kids, which is his passion, underprivileged kids, as a dentist. And he said these little kids that go to free school can read better than Morgan can at the school we're paying for. And I said, I'm not from Houston, so in Houston, San Antonio, public school is good, but all my friends that are from here say don't send them to public school. That year after he said that, I was like, I should make my tax dollars work for me.
Right.
So I moved inside. I lived out in the Fondren Southwest. I moved inside, and I said, Morgan's going to go to McGregor. It's a magnet program.
Yeah.
Great nurturing, great background. And from there, she went to Johnston, and she graduated from Lamar.
Well,
So she did all HISD and basically kind of inner city HISD.
And you know what? There are pockets of success in every one of the schools. There are good things, and one thing I will do, counselor, is come and build on the successes of those schools.
Right.
There are challenges at all of them.
Right.
And many parents are misled, just maybe as you were, to think that private is better. Not necessarily.
Well, I started at
Not
2nd grade, and I think
necessarily.
Morgan got a great education. I mean, she's smart. She's just like any other kid that went to any other school. I mean, I'm sure there's some upper echelon private schools that are $20,000 a year or something, but the average private school, to me, can't compete with HISD.
Well-
HISD has the money and the resources.
Exactly.
And so
Interestingly, we are talking
Because
about...
like when she was at that private school and I was spending all that money in the 1st grade, those books were old, they were out of date, and the Catholic schools, I mean, they're great schools, but they would, they're always begging and begging and begging. I mean, just tell me all my fees so I can just pay them all at once, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
So I mean, with HISD, the books were more modern. I mean, the resources are there.
Well, public school...
In public school. It's just that we have to stop the myths of private is better and make our tax dollars work for us. And
Because
that's my
the most
interest.
expensive bill, you look at your tax bill,
Yeah,
and HISD is the biggest bill that you have out of all your bills. I mean, your taxes.
Tax bills. Yeah.
That one. So it seems like
So
to
we
me,
need to-
why
you would
don't
think
people get
people-
more involved?
That's what people need to do. And that's why I made Morgan, I'm like, I'm paying too much for these taxes in 3rd Ward. My taxes are $5,000 a year. I said, that is just too much for my baby not to be going, when I bought the house 15 years ago, it was $500 a year. But I'm just saying my taxes have gotten too high in this community for me not to take advantage of public schools. I'm just going to make sure that my tax dollars work for me.
Well, so many people think that private is better and charter is better and homeschool may be better, but the research is out there now.
Right.
Charter schools have been out long enough. And I'm not against charter schools. I just want children to learn.
Right.
I want to learn and I want to have equal access. But the research is out, and I could have told them this without that, is that public schools do better. They're outperforming charter schools. We have the data now to show that public schools are making the grade. You're not going to hear a lot of that because in Texas, we have what people call vouchers now, and it's a strong push, especially from Republicans, to make the voucher program work. Now, that's a whole nother story that I don't mind coming on your show again to talk about.
Certainly, we would love to hear more about it, particularly after you win.
Yes.
Let's talk about, let's talk about your qualifications. I notice on your name, it's Dr. Davetta Daniel. So tell me what your educational background is.
Well, my educational background is that at 50, I went to pursue a doctorate degree in education. And, you know, when they're young, I guess they learn to read. And then when we're old, we read to learn. Right. So learning never stops, is what I'm trying to say, or I think that if you're going to be a professional, whatever your field is, you should try to study. You should try to serve at the helm of it. So I say, if I'm going to work for somebody, then let me get as high as I can, or go as high as I can in the pursuit. And then it was fun. I got into a program. It was a 2-year pilot. Some of my principal friends and I were selected to participate in the program.
What school?
It was Nova Southeastern University. They have cohorts all across the world. It's international. But their headquarters is in Fort Lauderdale. But they had cohorts all across Texas and the world. So we went to Lake Charles, and we spent every weekend for 2 years with adjunct professors from all over the country. It was a very unique program. So we got the best of what was going on all over the country and the world.
In education?
In education.
Wow.
So that's one reason we were selected to go. And another reason is that, now I had been a principal for 12 years, and a successful principal. I was even principal of the year.
Oh, wow. Now, where were you a principal?
I was a principal at Dowling Middle School, and my last 7 years was at Hartsfield Elementary School.
Wow.
And so, but now prior to that, I'd been a school counselor 17 years. I started at Jack Yates.
Oh, wow.
And Jack Yates, man, when I see Jack Yates now, to know what it had back then in the 80s, we had 3,000 plus students at Jack Yates.
And how many students does it have now?
Oh, I heard it's like under 800.
Oh, wow.
I know. And so the school, the add-on that you see, was built when I was there, because we had students and so much activity, so many clubs and organizations. We had.
So how did the school die?
Well, that's another story. You'll have to have me on, because
Okay.
it'll take too long. But
Wow.
it was just, I don't know. I think it was by design. I think, you know, we were doing too well.
Do you think it was also because kids moved out of the community, the parents moved to the suburbs, and it wasn't as many kids?
Well, what they started doing is moving principals. We had a great principal back in the 80s. We had a great staff. You know, I had a principal, Dr. Joe Drayton. He used to say, you know, it's about the right mix. Once you get the right mix, meaning the right administrators, the right teachers, and everything is kind of gels together, you get a good product. And I guess at that time, we had the right mix. Not only were the football players going to state and winning, they did that 2 or 3 times in a row to Midland, Odessa. Every year, they were the baddest in the state.
All right.
And Jack Yates was and we were winning in football, basketball, track. We had the best band, UIL competition in science and math, theater arts. Boy, we would go down there and
the voice. I know they always had good people doing voiceover.
I'm telling you, we had the best of everything. People, you know, it's something about a name. And Yates was known all across the country.
Wow.
You know, because we have like Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen.
Right.
We have Roland Martin out there, was a student of mine.
Wow.
Even Boris Miles, one of our local state representatives. And then the list goes, Monica Lamb used to play with the Comets.
Right.
And we have great people that came out of Yates. You know, and this is within, you know, the last century.
Right.
So their names are out there, and that name, Jack Yates, has traveled.
Right.
And so the name, the history, you know, you can say that about any of the schools.
Right.
You know, one reason, counselor, that I'm running is because many people have kind of just washed their hands of poor children.
Right.
Or say underserved children.
Right.
But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, in every barrio, in every ghetto, and the like, you will find so many untapped diamonds. just waiting to be nurtured
Wow.
and nourished. People with innate talent. No real, maybe parents not educated. Some
Parents
people
might not even be involved.
Parents not being involved.
I noticed that when Morgan was in elementary school, the smartest boy, there was the smartest boy in every class they took was a little boy named Narcisse. And I had a little party for her in elementary school, and I invited all of them. The parents didn't speak English. They didn't read English. He couldn't come to the party. I was willing to go pick him up, but he had definitely a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
But he was the smartest boy. He could draw. He could do everything. This boy should have been president of the United States one day. He was that smart, but he just wasn't. He didn't have the support or anything that he had, but he was just a genius and delightful too.
Well, see, you light up like you lit up like a Christmas tree.
Well, because I love learning, and I was an untapped diamond. My mother died when I was young, and I moved and lived with different relatives, and nobody cared about what was happening with me. I was one of the smartest girls in my school, didn't get a scholarship. It was just like, oh, her mama's dead, who cares about her? Kind of like the foster kids. Yeah, I wasn't raised like you would think I was raised.
Wow.
And so I light up when I see, and I want to help and foster underserved kids. That's one of the reasons why I do criminal law, because I help the underserved.
Well, I've always had a passion for the underserved.
I can tell you lit up too.
I do, because it doesn't matter.
I saw that. I was catching it. It was getting me.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, just because children are different, maybe, doesn't mean they're deficient. You get some creative minds that come out of households that that are not spoon-fed.
Right.
They have to learn how to survive. And so with that comes a lot of learning. Some of it's innate, God-given, and some of it is that has to be nourished or what have you, but the talent is there. Right. Most kids need, unless they have learning disabilities, and even they can learn too. But they just need a little direction, just a little, say, compass, a little blueprint. Jack Yates, let me go back to there. Jack Yates used to prepare children to go to college, go to SAT. We used to have SAT. They would knock SAT as far as here to Dynamo Stadium over there, as far as the scores. Okay, and this was not no SAT prep. All this stuff that you pay for now, it was just teachers doing a good job preparing children to take after what they call it, AP courses, ACT tests, SAT tests, and they were making the grade. We had kids that were going to any college that's out here, the best. Then we had one of the largest vocational technical programs, horticulture, agriculture, cosmetology, auto mechanics. These were certification courses where if a student didn't want to go to four-year college, they could leave high school with a certification and go on to work. And so that's the kind of
school. And isn't that important right now?
That is so important.
And we have such a deficit. One of the things I struggle with discussing educationally, because I am a lawyer, you're a doctor, you have a doctorate, people think, oh, they're just being snooty. But I don't think everybody has to go to college. And one of the things I'm discouraged with people is everybody feels like I got to send my kid to college, kids got to go to college, or I'm nothing. I grew up in the time when kids did, woods crafting, they did auto mechanics, and some people's talent is there.
Yes.
I mean, some of the richest people do cars. Some of the best people do hair, barber. And I think that we don't give enough credit to kids who want to do that. It's almost like, I'm getting a barber's license, or I'm getting a cosmetology license, and I'll go to college later. Like, you're deficient if you don't go to college. There's nothing wrong with being a cosmetologist.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's what's missing in our schools, too, the trades and vocations, because some kids are just, they really don't want to go to college, so they feel pressured, and so they end up selling dope or thinking they're not going to be anything because no one pushes them to do what their talents lead them to.
Well, you're absolutely right.
And everybody's talent is not college.
And
because college, you got to want to read and write, and everybody doesn't like to read and write.
But certainly you got to learn you got to know how to read. I don't care what.
No matter, but I'm just saying, but you got to keep reading in college. So
you got to keep. It never stops.
But I'm just saying, some people, after they read through high school and they have reading comprehension, they don't want to read after they get grown. They just want to read the directions in the talent that they like.
Right.
If it's wood crafting or if it's building a new automobile, then they're going to read that, what they're interested in, what their trade is. But they don't want to just read about English, the same thing they just read in high school. Some kids just don't have that aptitude.
Well, and
so
some
they
of the
feel
courses
like
are
they're
so boring, because I'm going to tell you what we're facing, and that's what's lending to such a high dropout rate. the children are bored.
They're bored.
I don't know if you've known, but teachers are not trying to teach anymore.
No, I don't know that.
No, we have a teacher shortage, not just in Texas, but people.
Is it a teacher shortage because we don't have teachers, or it's a shortage because we have enough teachers, but they're not involved?
People don't want to teach anymore.
Oh, wow.
People want money, and they know it's not. People like me, we knew that you'd never get rich teaching school.
Right.
But it's like a ministry. Something when I was 12, we played my grandmother's garage. And if I couldn't be the teacher, and everybody was in the neighborhood in my grandmother's garage in the backyard, and if I couldn't be the teacher, I just didn't want to play. Well, I knew
that was your gift.
I'm living my purpose-driven life. I wanted to be a teacher. And so I was a teacher, counselor. I mean, I went up the route. So when I hear people talk about teachers as if it's a plague, then I know that that's not, well, I'm just a teacher. No, honey, you are a teacher.
Right, and that's a big deal.
You are a teacher, and teachers have a stand in the community. Do you know in Finland, in Singapore, and in South Korea, they pay teachers synonymous to medical doctors.
Wow.
Because that's how much respect and emphasis that they put on people who teach school. Here, it's an afterthought. Oh, if I can't do nothing else, then I'll go teach. Well, that's just not the attitude. And people are not going in the if you go in any of the college campuses, the education department is going to be the lowest enrolled department because people are not interested in teaching school.
Wow. Let's change the subject a moment. You know what's near and dear to my heart is the pipeline to prison.
Oh.
The school pipeline to prison. Let me give you an example of why. I have a girlfriend that's going through something. Her son, a high school student at Bel Air, allegedly his pupils were dilated and his finger, I don't know who it was, I guess it was the cop, because all these schools have cops now, smelled weed on his fingertips, and his eyes were dilated, his pupils were dilated, and he was basically, and he's a star baseball player, he's kicked off the baseball team, he's sent to an alternative school, that's the punishment. The mom, who's a friend of mine, who's also a lawyer, says, oh no, he's taking some kind of prescribed medicine for acre pain. He might have stayed up too late talking on the phone, with his little girlfriend or something, but to make sure before I scream and holler at this school, I said, well, take him to get a drug test and take him to a reputable lab like, LabQuest or, Quest Diagnostics. She took him, got the test results, and it's negative for every drug screening there is, it's negative. Because she said she didn't think she doesn't know if he's experimented before in his life, but she knows that he's an active baseball player on all the extra leagues and all that. He's too athletic to be getting high, and she knows, she didn't think it was high. He just didn't feel good that day. Right. And he takes allergy medicine and a prescribed painkiller, which could be kind of hazardous at school. It could make you sleepy or whatever. So, but he was already sent to an alternative school. So she had to get a lieutenant at HPD, who's his godfather, to go over there and talk to them. We had to take a lab test over there. All of this, we're about to pull him out of school, to homeschool him, because he's a senior in high school. He's never been around people that have to go to an alternative school, and his passion is baseball. And as you know, as an educator, kids stay in school that lasts basically about 11th grade. School should probably stop at the 11th grade to me. But that 12th grade, if you're not in an extracurricular activity, it's hard to keep your focus and keep your discipline because you're too grown for school. That's why so many of them drop out in the 10th and 11th grade. I remember how bored I was in the 12th grade.
Well, they need to change the curriculum.
Or just do something that's preparing you for the afterlife.
Exactly.
That should be your whole senior year, not some more math, not some more English. You've done that all your damn life. It's time now to do something that's going to prepare you for college,
Right.
But if you're a cheerleader or if you're in the pep squad or you play sports, then you're still interested because you're trying to get that scholarship. So it's almost like preparing you for the next stage. So she went through all of that and went through all the disciplinary rules that they violated by not calling her, by just sending them to another school, like all of the written procedures that they didn't follow. And after a week, 3 days, they reversed themselves and let him stay. But I just told her, I know you're glad because you're a fortunate mother with all this support, but what about the kid who was like me that didn't have anybody? That just got in trouble. They would have just had to go to an alternative school whose no family member's ever been up to the school. Nobody knows what you're doing, whether you can go to school or not. Don't even give a damn if you go to school or not. What about the parent that's working $10 an hour, can't take off to try to figure out what's going on, doesn't have a godfather that's a lieutenant with HISD, HPD, that can come in a uniform and say you haven't given him any due process. If he has a negative test result, how are you going to decide that he was high?
Well, you have just honed into some other
I mean, I'm
reasons
so damn
running.
pissed off. I don't know what, we so
Yes.
damn pissed off. We was about to go boycott over at Bel Air. I just said the heavy hitter didn't take off, because I was about to go up there. We were about to do it all. Okay,
Well, have you
whatever.
heard about zero tolerance?
Yes, ma'am, and I know what it is, and
The
what I'm
policy
trying.
is horrible.
You know what our position is, and I hope this is yours. Is let kids be kids. Let kids have some conflict resolution. Let them make mistakes. If you can't make mistakes in high school, when can you? And I was a part of the American Leadership Forum a few years ago, and found out that, say 5 or 6 years ago, the pipeline from prison in Texas was the 4th grade. They studied 4th grade discipline and academia to know how many prisons they have waiting for these kids when they're 17 and 18 years old. I'm like, what in the hell kind of system do we have?
We have one that's oppressive to African Americans.
Yeah, and he's a little black boy, obviously.
Yes, certainly African American.
His mama was willing to pull through open records with HISD, go through the Open Records Act and find, because the problem what the administrators don't understand is these kids are all friends with black, Hispanic, Asian kids, so they know how they're being treated if they get caught with a joint, okay? So you can pull those records and disciplinary records and find out, did they get sent to an alternate? The boy was negative on his test, so how is someone just going to decide that he was high?
Well, counselor, it's by design. It's by design to oppress children who are already depressed and oppressed. Zero tolerance. Now, you're a church-going woman. I am. We both are.
That's not biblical.
Suppose God was zero tolerant with us.
We'd all be in hell.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, we
Right.
just may as well all just fall out and go to hell.
I know.
And so why would you, we call them, educators like myself call discipline teachable moments. Teachable moments.
Right.
They're all teachable moments when you have children that infract any kind of a law or any kind of policy. And some of these policies are just too fierce anyway. They're too strong, and they don't make any sense.
They don't make any sense.
And many schools don't have councils anymore. So you have teachers.
But they have policemen.
They have policemen. And they
They don't
have
have
guns.
councils, but
and
they
have guns.
Policemen with guns.
And they have guns. And I was just looking the other day, HISD for this past school year had 102 weapons on 55 campuses that were reported. I mean, come on, guns and knives. Now, pocket knife, children just take it. That can be used as a tool, But now, it seems like most of the schools were brown and black. And those type of things is that's what the media picks up. Not too long ago, it was a big fight at Bel Air High School. I don't know if you saw it, but it was.
I don't watch the news. It's too
well, it was
depressing.
black children, and they were in one wing of the building, and I'm telling you, they just kept that camera
On those black
instead of
children.
somebody trying to break the fight up. Where were the security guards?
Where are those policemen now?
Where are the policemen now? I mean, it's just so much going on to let me know that this is an oppressed situation. The pipeline to prison is real. I did some work with the juvenile probation department for about 2 years. I had a contract there. I was fired. I just want to tell you. I want to tell you. Because
What happened?
I was fired.
You were trying to help the kids.
Well, I was
and they
trying to
weren't
help them, and
I
they didn't
know.
want you to help them.
They want you to punish them.
I had a lady told me that, unless I was an education specialist, that was my title, and all the judges, they would come in, they had 4 or 5 different courts, the gang court, the drug court.
But it's all punishment.
Well, it's punishment.
It's all punishment.
But
And
look,
they wouldn't let a
some of
lawyer
these kids
like
were
that.
in the 4th grade. I say they need to be in the principal's office, the counselor's office, not the criminal court. And then another thing, you're a judge, you're a lawyer.
Right.
Do you know that a lot of these records are not expunged? They say that they're going to be expunged.
They don't do that. They don't seal those kids' records.
Yeah, they don't. I'm
They
telling
tell you that it's a myth. It's an urban myth. They do
It
not
is a
seal
myth.
those
And
kids'
so what are
records.
they? They are X'd out in
Right.
the 4th grade.
In
What
the
are they
4th
going to
grade.
do? What are they going to do but go to
Prison. That's the institution. They want to build the institutions for school and
No,
then
they
prison.
are building them.
Yeah, no, I know. From
they
the
are
4th grade,
building.
yeah. And the thing is, what happened to using our resources to counsel these kids? Of course, a lot of these kids are having abusive backgrounds or neglected backgrounds, but we have counselors all in the school, and you can have
No,
different
we
type-
don't. That's the problem.
Well, we used to,
We
and we
used
have
to.
the resources
Yeah,
for that.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
what's the difference in spending the money to counsel kids versus sending them to an alternative school or sending them to prison? It's all the same tax dollars.
Well,
Why can't we do that?
Well, because they have what they call a decentralization of funds. decentralization.
And what does that
What
mean?
the hell is that? I'm looking at your face.
But as a taxpayer, all I can see is that my money, whether it's going to build prisons or build schools, it's still taxes I have to pay. And it seems to me that that money doesn't have to be divvied up between don't pay for the schools, like we don't pay for roads, and we're letting everything, you know, fall apart, but yet we keep building prisons and let them be on the New York Stock Exchange. But it's the minority community's fault because we're taxpayers and we need to demand respect and demand to be treated properly.
Okay, decentralized, let me say real quickly that came up with remember the No Child Left Behind federal legislation that we're still under the gun, they're laxing a little bit. Then this is when they're saying that schools are funded by the number of students. So if you have a high enrolled school, then you get high money. If you have a low enrolled school, then you got less money.
Like Jackie.
And the only way that you can stay open is to, you know, apply for subsidies, and then that's political too because they decide who they're gonna give subsidy to, who they're not. It's all just a bunch of crap, okay? So you know, as an elementary parent, your daughter, Morgan, every kid needs an art class, a music class, a PE class. Every child should have technology and library. I don't care if they have 5 students or 500 students. So what they started doing was just saying, well, we can't afford it because we don't have but, you know, 80 students or whatever it is. So that's not enough money to pay your staff because most of the money goes into staff.
Right.
So after staff is, you know, allocated and paid for, you got very little left if you're talking about funding by enrollment. Right. Okay, it used to be just a centralized budget. All the money is here, so we know that we got to have art, we know we got to have music, we know we have technology, we know we got to have library, we know we got to have a nurse, we know we got to have a counselor. You know, so it didn't matter. You know, if you had say a low enrolled school, those services and those programs were paid for. Well, that's changed now, and that's why a lot of schools do not have some of the programs that we're fighting for, and I'm fighting for, and many other people are fighting for. So we've got a lot of problems, and it's a lot of work. You're probably going to have more work than you have time, because when you talk about the children who are starting young, who are already in this pipeline, and some of them, especially African American children, that a lot of times cannot afford a lawyer like you. They have to take what they can get, and they don't take the time with them. And so they end up in a penal situation, and they never really get out. So it's a new form of slavery. It really is. And they talk about that.
People don't want to hear that.
Well, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear
that way.
It's scary.
One of the things I'm trying to spread with the good news, like with young men like Mauricio, who's our co-producer sitting in the back, and you know, young lawyers in their 20s and 30s, I preach to them, it doesn't have to be this way. You can run for school board. You can run for state representative. It doesn't have to be people have that same job until they're 75 and die. You know,
right.
You can run for that. You can make marijuana legal if you think that's appropriate. You can make people's records be expunged after 10 years of them not being in trouble. The laws do not have to be the way they are today that are so punitive. They can be changed.
Yes.
We can go back to having different levels of discipline inside the school where someone at the school handles that discipline instead of referring it to the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system is not designed to rehabilitate, to guide, or to nurture. Schools are designed for that.
That's right.
The criminal justice system is designed to punish people.
That's right.
There's no rehabilitation there. So how are you going to send a 4th grader or even an 11th grader there? An 11th grader is still developing social skills.
Teachable moments.
They need to be taught. They need to understand if you have a fight, it's conflict resolution.
Right.
You might come from a family where they beating your butt and beating your daddy's beating your mama every day, so you might jump off a little faster. There should be counseling available for that. Not just if somebody gets shot at the school. That's the only time we're going to spend the money for grief counseling. Some of these kids are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder in their own home.
And hunger, don't leave hunger.
And they're hungry. But so you're going to just throw them into prison and you're going to punish children? I mean, I just think that
it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
That's why I'm running for the school board.
And that's why we need people like you running, and I'm glad you are, somebody that we can approach, someone we can fight. And I just can't give up in my lifetime. That's why I do this show. That's why I want to talk about it, make DVDs, put it on. I think we die and we perish for lack of knowledge, you know, just like the biblical scriptures say. Most people guess or assume, or they believe what the media tells them to believe, but they have no real information about what's really going on. Because you have to admit, we don't have an African American or Hispanic community that really disseminates information. Like if you wanted to know how most people in Houston wouldn't want to vote for president? I mean, or they think the president writes the laws. Why don't people who graduate from high school here know that Congress writes the laws? Why don't they know that?
Well,
I mean,
why don't they know it's three systems, a judicial system,
Right.
executive system, and what's
and
the
look,
other?
and it's the legislative branch, the judicial
the
branch,
branches.
and the executive
Right,
branch.
right.
But why don't they know that? We knew it coming out of San Antonio. What's going on in Houston's education that people don't understand? That the president, they'll say the president's not doing anything. The president doesn't write the laws.
No.
And I constantly am reminding people that Congress writes the laws. The Senate either, ratifies it and sends it on, and then the president only gets to veto or sign it, something in the law.
Right.
He doesn't write the laws. But
Right.
we think that, just like the judicial system, people don't understand that what the judge's roles, the prosecutor's role. The prosecutor brings the charges. The prosecutor dismisses the charges, not the judge.
Right.
The judge is the referee.
Right.
And so people don't understand the roles, but yet we're so affected by it. And we don't understand how, just like Donald Trump has one vote, I have one vote, you have one vote. The vote is our only equalization.
It's our voice.
That's the only voice we have. And we have to start exercising that. But yet when we get in trouble or our kid gets in trouble, then we want everybody to be concerned and wonder why it's like this.
Right.
It's like this because you don't get involved,
Right.
because you don't educate yourself. But I have to admit, there's no central place to get that education. I work with the NAACP, and one of the things that I want to try to do is get some of the young people to write some of the systematic things on the website. What is Congress? A lot of people think they know, but they don't know. But somebody has to disseminate that information, whether it's the Urban League. Why can't you just click? Why do you have to click Congress? Why can't these organizations tell you who your judges are, who your district representatives are for HISD?
Right.
Shouldn't we have a central organization that at least has the information there for the taking?
Well, you'll be the one at the NAACP's table that'll make that difference.
I'm
And
trying.
I'm seeing so many.
I'm trying.
I call them, the millennials.
Right.
And there's so many millennials that I'm just impressed. My daughter's a millennial, and they are so smart. They're creative, non-traditional. They're not as loyal as we were. We talked about loyalty before we came in here, but these young people are not so led by money. They like
I thought
what
they were more led by money.
Well, yes and no. They feel entitled.
Yeah.
They feel like because they were born, just because they were born.
They're going to get it.
Yeah, they're
going to
gonna
get what
get
they're
it.
entitled to.
Right.
But they are more interested in pursuing
But
their
they work
dreams.
hard. A lot of them
They work
very
hard, and what I admire about them is they do what they want to do.
And they're not tolerant. We will say, we were taught, well, don't burn a bridge because you may have to cross it again. They don't think that. I mean, they really don't. If they're not happy with something, they'll walk out the door. They'll never call and say thank you for the opportunity. None of this stuff. But they have. It's like they have a secret society or something. They don't snitch on each other. It's like an unwritten code.
How old is your daughter?
My daughter's 31 years old. She's
Yeah.
grown.
But
But that
that's
millennial
still-
is
she's still-
25 to 35. They like
Right.
the baby boomers.
Right.
And that's why you're hearing so much about the millennials.
They're the children of the baby boomers,
They're-
right?
Well,
They're our children,
Let's
right.
think about it. Let's think
our
about it. Our children, we weren't as hard on as our parents were.
Right.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
And they're that communication age.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of their communication is hip hop. It's influenced too much to me by hip hop, but at least they are communicating.
Yeah.
So I hope that we can impart on them some things that need to be changed,
Yeah.
like the school board. I mean, does your 31-year-old millennial care about the educational system? I mean,
She's involved in my race, and
Right.
she really was not involved in it at all until I got involved.
so is there a way for you to use that millennial platform to say what District 4 is and why District 4 is important? Because her generation, I'm sure a lot of them have kids already and they're having babies. So they
Well-
should be concerned about schools and their communities.
Well, you know what? We got some millennials that are working on our campaign.
Good.
And we'll be doing a block walk this coming Saturday. And we have, as I know, about 7 that have committed to walking with
And
us.
make sure when they walk, I'm sure they'll do this anyway.
Yeah.
They'll be taking selfies and they'll
Yeah.
put it on Facebook. But
They
just
gotta make it fun, yeah.
They have to make it fun, but
Yeah.
just make sure the Facebook has the educational piece to it.
Right.
Like you have something on yours that they can link it to,
Yeah.
so that they want to know what is District 4, why is this important. So there is some basic, quick questions and answers for them to relate to.
Well, I think District 4 is the most unique district going on right now.
And where is
all the
District
change-
4?
District 4 is in the heart of 3rd Ward. It goes south into Sunnyside, all the way out to, it's a new addition of homes, and I don't know that addition, but it's so about 8 or 9 miles outside Martin Luther King. You know, at Sterling High School, it goes all the way out to Sterling High School into this neighborhood that's almost in Pearland. So it's pretty big. Then if you want to go east, it goes to Fuquay, okay, near Telephone Road.
Okay.
And then it goes west right to Fannin, across Alameda. And then Fannin, and right over there, there's a part of District 4. And then we are even in the Stella Link in Maryland.
Really?
So it's some of it
what
has
school
been
is
cut
Stella
out.
Link, Maryland?
Stella Link, the elementary school is Sherman Elementary and Red Elementary School.
heard of those.
So we'll be out there.
But no, none of the middle schools or high schools.
Well,
in
the
Maryland.
Johnston and the Persian are not in
District
our
4.
district, no.
Okay.
But those 2 elementary schools are, and those people vote. And when they go to the polls, they already know who they're voting. You know, you can be out there handing them cards, but they have their little slate. They've already studied. They've studied the issues, and they studied.
And someone's also told them who to vote for.
And that's hopefully true.
No, I'm just saying, but they have those usually those Republican organizations that already say tell them who to vote for.
And Democratic too.
And the Democratic ones.
Right,
too?
right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So.
And I think the League of Women Voters.
League of
is good
Women
about it,
Voters,
too.
matter of fact, they do a voter's guide every
Right,
year. I just
right.
got through filling that one out with my bio, my picture, and everything. And so that should
We have
come
1
out
minute
probably
to wrap
next
it
week.
up. So tell my viewers one more time why you should be District 4 elected to school board this November 2015.
First of all, I am the only candidate in this race that is an educator, that is a career educator. I know teachers, I know students, I know parents, I know business, and I know how to galvanize all of these groups. I have the experience, I have the passion, I've done it, I know the curriculum. I know, you know, in education there's nothing really new under the sun. They have a lot of new programs, but they're really not new, they have new names on them. And so this is something, these things, little intricacies like these are something that it takes someone like me with the experience. Block scheduling, is it good, is it bad? The lingo, the pedagogy, I mean, the infrastructure. It's so much involved when you're talking about school business. There are those, like I was telling you earlier, Counselor, who have already written off poor and underprivileged, or I call them our future promises. But I'm running because I'm one that will be out there, and I will be like a ripple of hope to provide hope for each one of those children, just like they're mine. If they need a lawyer, I'll call people like you. If they need money, I'll call people like somebody else. Because whatever they need is out there. And never should a child go and feel like they're alone. I want to let them know that they're never alone. And I want to be that one that they can feel, and not just them, the parents, the community. And always access. I will be accessible, and I'm ready to roll I'm not competing with anybody, but trying to raise the bar. I don't want equity, I want excellence. And I know that we have the opportunity and the commitment and the talent to work toward excellence.
And I'm being told to wrap this up. So thank you, Dr. Davetta Daniels, for explaining to us why you are running November the 4th, 2015 for HISD School Board Trustee, District 4.
Thank you so
Good
much
luck.
for having me.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. We've been charged with crime. This is a show where I